Today we are going to be making some fermented salsa. This is the recipe that's up on my blog. I'll link it below. So fermented salsa, there really isn't any specific ingredients you have to use. I am making just a basic salsa with tomatoes, peppers, onion, cilantro, and lime. But you can substitute some of those out. You can have whatever tomatoes, whatever peppers you want, or if you don't want them, don't put them in. You can make it sweeter, so use like pineapple or mango. It's up to you. This is one of those things that because it's being fermented, we're not canning, we get to play around and make it our own. So all of my produce has been washed, and we're just gonna cut it into pieces. And they can be as big or as small as you want them to be. Now I'm choosing to chop these by hand, but you absolutely do not have to do that. If you want to chop them in the food processor, or if you have a food chopper, by all means, go for it. I don't have a specific food chopper. I do have a food processor, but I like the fact that if I cut it by hand, or if I chop it by hand, I get to control the size much more. And if you use a food processor, you might risk kind of pulverizing it and get more of a soupy texture than the bite-sized texture that I'm going for here. And for my tomatoes today, I am using just a mishmash of tomatoes that I pulled from my garden. It's not a specific kind. And I'm just cutting off any bad spots that are on it. All right, our tomatoes are all cut. We're just gonna roll them on in. I'm gonna be careful to get all of this, or at least as much of this juice as I can. There we have it. Next, I'm going to cut my onion. And I forgot to count how many tomatoes I had here, but there were quite a few, but they weren't really big. I think I'm going to shoot here for filling 2 quart-sized jars. Here are onions. When we mix this all together, we'll decide whether we need more of any specific ingredient. So here's cilantro. If you're one of those cilantro tastes like soap people, then definitely skip this. But we really enjoy cilantro in this house, so I'm gonna add quite a bit. There we are, starting to look really nice with all these colors coming together. Last but not least, the peppers. So the peppers I'm using for this is a poblano, these are serranos, and this is a jalapeno. I like my salsa a little bit on the spicy side. Actually, I like pretty much everything a little more on the spicy side. And last but not least, the lime. So I like to add lime juice to my salsa because I think it just gives that the nice, subtle citrusy flavor. I just think it works perfect. All right. Stir it all in. The next step to this is adding your salt. You want to use about a teaspoon of salt per pint of vegetables. So I am estimating this is probably about 2 quarts. I am going to add a total of 4 teaspoons, and this is a half teaspoon, so I'm gonna put 8 of these in here. And I'm using Redmond real salt in this. You can use a sea salt, a Himalayan salt, a Celtic salt. Any of those are fine. You just don't want to use an iodized salt because the iodine that's put into the salt will interrupt the fermentation process. And the whole point of this is to have the good bacteria thrive, and if we're adding the iodine, then we might kill that off, and then we lose all of those benefits, all of those really good probiotic benefits. All right, there we have it. This portion completely done. Now it's time to grab our jars and our weights and get it all packed up. We have our jars. And I have 2 weights, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the third one that I don't have a weight for. First, we're going to get these ready. So you don't have to fully sterilize these jars, but I am going to take some boiling water here and just pour it over it to help kill anything that might be on it. I've never had a problem with this. I actually learned this trick from the YouTube channel Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. Stacy made a ferment once where she did this with her jars, and I thought that was a really great idea. I've been doing it for a while now, and I've never had a problem. I'm not too concerned about doing it with just pouring boiling water over it. First, I'm gonna taste test this just to make sure I got it. It's good. It's really good. Those peppers have given it a really nice kick, and that's perfect for me. So now we go to filling our jars. So I have a canning funnel here, and I like this for salsa because otherwise I tend to spill it all over the place. Notice I only filled it to about here, and I did that because we want to have room to put our weight on top of it and not have the liquid spill over. This is very juicy. If you press down, you can see the liquid level is all the way up to here. So next, I'm going to grab my weight, and this is a fermenting weight. I like this kind because it's got this knob in the middle that makes it really easy to grab. And we're just gonna set that in, press it down a little bit, and there we go. This jar is all ready to go. We put a weight on it, or at least something to kind of push the solids underneath the liquid to prevent mold. If any of these little bits of vegetables go above or are floating above the liquid, then we risk mold developing, which can spoil your batch of salsa. As long as we keep it under the line of the liquid, we won't have that, or we shouldn't have that problem. I won't say we won't, because, you know, there's all kinds of factors. But as long as we were clean and we keep everything below the level of the liquid, we shouldn't have any problems with mold. Sometimes there is something called cam yeast that develops, and that is just a white film that's kind of right along the top. And that's perfectly normal. It tends to develop more on vegetables or fruits that are more sugary. And since tomatoes can have a lot of sugar in them, depending on the variety you use, I have had cam yeast develop. It's not harmful. It's nothing to worry about. If that happens, you just scrape it off. Here we're going to fill up the last 2 jars. And I don't know how full we'll be able to fill them. So just to even this out, I'm going to take a little bit from here and put it into here, just so they're a little more even. You don't have to do that, but why not? One, I'm going to put the weight on here. But for this one, I don't have another weight to put on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this onion peel from the onion that we put in here. And I'm going to use it to help push all of this down. I want to make sure we get everything underneath here. There you can see the onion peel is pushing everything below the surface of the liquid, so we don't have anything exposed to air. The last bit is just lids. All I'm going to do is use canning lids. There are fermentation lids you can get. I just don't have any, so I'm not going to use them. And these work just fine. So I'm going to take the jar and I'm going to screw on the lid. And you do want it a little tighter. I mean, you don't want to leave it super loose. And this one, since I took some out of here, I'm just going to wipe the rim off to make sure that there isn't any bits of food on the top. This. There we are. So now your salsa is ready to go. Well, it's ready to ferment, and we are going to ferment this for 2 to 3 days. I like to go about 3 days with my salsa. I like it. I like the way it tastes after about 3 days. But if you want it a little less tangy, just go 2. Since these jars do not allow gas to escape, we need to burp them. So all that means is we're going to loosen this ring. We're going to let air escape, and you should hear like a hiss sound that shows the gases that are trapped inside that are being created through the fermentation process are being released. And then we're going to tighten it back. And we have to do that because we don't want the pressure to build up inside of this. Those gases can create a lot of pressure, and potentially it could end up with your jars exploding if you don't release it. which is definitely not something we want to do. So it's important, if you use any type of lid that doesn't allow gases to escape on their own, that you burp the jar every day. So it's super easy. I hope you give it a try. If you liked this video, please consider hitting the like button. And if you want to be notified when I upload my next video, please hit the subscribe button. And if you hit the bell right next to it, you'll get the notification that I've uploaded a new video. Thank you for joining me in my kitchen. I hope to see you next time.